Hello and welcome guys, I hope you have a good day. I'm gonna try to make it just that little bit better by helping you getting started with Grunt.js. So first of all, let's not forget, if you want some inspiration for your projects or more tutorials, don't forget to check out Hintling.com. Also, I have some recommendation for hosting companies because I get the questions a lot about people finding a reliable host can be sometimes quite difficult. At the moment, we are using DreamHost for Hintling.com, so check it out. There's some pretty good offers on, and it's really easy just to upgrade. So enough about that. Let's just go over the main things about Node.js and npm and Grunt and how to really combine these things and what these things are. So the things you're gonna need to get started is you're basically gonna need the Node environment, then you're gonna need a package manager, and then you're going to need the Grunt command line. And once you have those three things, you can then install the Grunt version for your project, so that's the specific version for that project. So essentially you're going to need four things to just get started with your project here. So that can seem a bit confusing in the beginning because some people just think, okay, I'm just going to install Grunt globally and I'm done with it, but it's not really the way you want to be working with it. So let's jump into it. The first thing we're going to need is the Node.js environment. So what is Node? Well, Node is an open source cross-platform JavaScript run environment. And what does that mean? Well, it means that you can run JavaScript in that environment. So once we got that, the next thing we're going to need is then the npm. So that's the Node package manager. So you might be familiar with Bower or other similar version package managers. So the npm is sort of specific to Node and pretty much handle most Node packages. So let's just get that, and in order to get that we need to go to node.org. So if you go to node.org, you should find a page where it allows you to click the download link. On the download page you will have the options to choose whether you want to Windows version, Mac OS, or so on. So choose the right version for operation system, and you also have the option to choose whether you want to run 32-bit or you want to run 64-bit. So I'm just gonna go with the 64 version here because I'm running a 64-bit version system here. So choose the right one. The download file will then show up in your download folder. I already downloaded here just for the sake of making it a bit faster. So if you click that one, just double click and open it, and it would then just check whether your computer has sufficient space to actually install that environment. Just give it a bit of time here. Alright, so once it's done checking for the sufficient space here, just click next and just accept that one. That's fine. And then just, this is fine path as well, just choose that one. And you'll notice that in here we have the npm, which is Node package manager, so it's part of Node here, so that's what we want. Just click next and just next again. Alright, so just given the time to install here, just make sure that you run it in administrator mode or you might run into some permission problems. So I'm running as an administrator here, so I'm not gonna get any problems with an installation, so make sure of that. Just give it a bit of time here. So I'm just gonna speed it a bit up for the sake of this tutorial, so it's not gonna be too long. So if you just give it a bit of time, after that I will show you how to check whether this has been installed correctly, and we're going to do that through command prompt. So we're going to do that by checking what version of Node has been installed. So that's quite relevant. It just tells you whether it's been completely installed correctly here. So one thing worth noting though, if you have your command prompt open now and you're installing it next to, you will have to restart your command prompt because it's not going to pick up the path of where Node is installed, so you won't be able to execute your commands. So just restart your command prompt if you have it running. So just open command prompt here. It's just cmd. Give it a second here to just find it. And I'm going to run that as an administrator, so if you just right click on it and choose run as an administrator. Give it a second to open here. Say yes to that. So it doesn't matter where you're gonna do this because it's installed globally now. So you see, if you type this command, so it's Node version, and we should be presented with a number here, a version number. So we can also check our package manager, and we do that by npm version, and you see we got the different number here. So it's now working correctly. We got a version number for each of them. So with Node and our package manager installed now, what we can do now is we can go in and install the Grunt command line tool. So how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to use the Node packaging manager. So it's npm, that's for the package manager, and then we do install, and then just do -g to do it globally, and then we can do grunt -CLI. So that's the command line tool. And if you click into there, you'll see a little spinning icon here in the corner, and just give it a bit of time to run. So it's -g for doing this globally, so it's worth remembering because it's pretty much similar approach with other things you're gonna install, whether you want to install locally or globally. Right, so the next thing we want here is just to clean up a project here. So I'm just gonna get rid of this Node installer here. Right, so let's create a folder for our project. I'm just gonna call it our project here, so you always call it something more sensible. So in here is where we want to install a version of Grunt then. So how are we gonna do that? Well, we're gonna do it like this. First, we're going to go through the folder we're going to be working in. So if you copy the path from your file explorer, for example, out there, and just Control-C that, and I've done it here, and then in your command prompt you can then say cd and space, and then you can right click and you can then paste it in, and you should then see the path in, and then you click enter, and that should take you to that specific path. You may be running on a different drive. If you're doing it on a different drive, what you need to do is type the letter of the drive you want to go to, and then you want to colon, and then just click enter, and that should take you to the root of that drive, and then you can then do cd and then the path again to that specific folder you're looking for. So I hope that helped. So once we got our project folder, we're gonna need two files, two very essential files. One of them is your package.json file. This file, what that's gonna be doing is it's gonna sort of be the central point of your project, describing your project, and it does that by defining what sort of packages you got in your project. So you could, for example, have a minifier, you could have a SAS compiler. There's hundreds of these different sort of packages available to you. However, we need somewhere to specify what version they're running. So that is pretty much what that package is gonna do. It's gonna have a title, it's gonna have an author, it's gonna have different packages, it's gonna say whether these packages are in a dev environment, whether they're in a production environment, and so on. So that's your package.json. What you're also gonna need is a grunt file.js. And what's this file? Well, this file is the one that's gonna contain the tasks. So what are tasks? Well, pretty much everything in Grunt is tasks. The whole point of Grunt is that it's an automated tool which can run a bunch of tasks and reduce the amount of time you spend on development. So, for example, with a minifying package before, as we mentioned, well, we can set up a task to minify. So when we run a certain command in a command line, it will minify. Also, we can also make it watch it and minify automatically, which we're going to see later on. So that's the whole point of this. What you're also going to do with this grunt file is you can start combining these different tasks. So for example, you want to concatenate your file first and then minify it, or you want to beautify your project or uglify it. So as I said, this is sort of the concept behind it, that you are trying to reduce the development time and make things a bit easier. Another bonus with it is it kind of reduces the amount of human errors in it. So there's quite a few ways to actually create these files. Probably one of the easiest ways would just be to use your command line tool, or you can, for example, go in and find a sample file, or if you already have a previous project, you can take this package.json file and just copy it over. But in this case, we're going to show you how to do it through your command line. So in order to create this file, we can use the command line by doing npm, and then we can do init, and that's going to start the process of creating this file. So you will notice here in the background, once I start doing this, that we're going to get a file into this folder, because I have gone to this path and I'm now working in this folder. So make sure you're in that folder. So what you're going to do is npm init, and it's not going to ask you what you're going to call this project. So just click enter once you're done with that. So we just keep in a version 1.00 here. And then you just give it a description. So I'm just going to call this a test project, just to demonstrate. Alright, I spelled demonstrate wrong there, so I apologize for that. So your entry point, what is your entry point? Well, your entry point is, if you're building an application, that would be the main access to it. So it'd be your index file or your app.js or something like that. So it's not relevant for this specific one because we're just going to be working with an HTML document here. So just click enter to that one as well once you have that. I'm not going to do any test commands and go a repository. No, I'm going to keyword. I've got all for that. We can put it in later, don't worry about that. And then just in the end, just say yes here. So you're happy with that, with the license and everything. You notice in here we then have a package.json file. So if you open that in your editor, I'll just ignore that update now. So in here, you notice that we have name, which are Hintling. So if you type in, and we got the version, and we got the license, and we got author, so we type in author down here. So these are the specific things for a project, so we don't need scripts for this one here. So you can remove that, depending on what you're doing. So that's your package.json file, and then it's going to be in the root of your project. Alright, so that's that file. So the next thing we need to install is the version of Grunt we're on. So you can go in and specify a specific version number if you want. I will give you the command line for it in the description, so don't worry about that. We're just going to install the latest version of Grunt here. So you do that by say npm install grunt and then 2- save and dev. And the reason why we do save dev is because we want to save it as the development version. You will notice in your file, your package file, that there's a production version and a development version. And what is that? Well, imagine your development version, the files that you use for your development, and say there might be some files in the production version that is not relevant to that environment. So once you install Grunt, you can then go in as later on, if you say you downloaded a project and someone had to specify a certain amount of packages for your production environment, you can then go in and say install only the production environment packages for this project, so you can run just a specific part of it. So hopefully that makes sense. Alright, so Grunt is done installing here. So you notice that we have a node modules folder, and what you also notice, if you went into a package.json file here, it will tell you which version of Grunt has been installed. So it will add that bit of line to your Grunt, to your package.json file. So once anyone else wants to install the specific project, they could go in and say npm install, and it would install that specific version of Grunt to the project. So that's quite nifty. So the next thing we're going to need is this grunt file.js. So probably the easiest way you can do it is going in and actually just copy pasting it from the Grunt site. So Grunt.js.com, you can go in and then just get the sample file, and we're just going to do that for this example just to demonstrate how it works. But think about this another way. The way you're going to be working with this probably is you're going to set up your package.json file, and you're going to install your version of Grunt, and then you're going to start installing packages depending on what your project needs as you go along. So you wouldn't start out with a sample file as much. You would start out with just the wrappers, and then over time, as you're installing these packages, you would add your code. But just for the sake of demonstrating here, we're gonna do it just taking the sample file here so you can follow along. So if you just go to Grunt.js.com and get the sample file here, so just copy paste it and then create a new file in your editor and just copy paste it in, as I said, and then you want to save it as a JS file. So we'll go over all this, don't worry about it. You're probably going to be doing it next tutorial because it's getting quite long, this tutorial now, but let's just save it here. And you want to save it as in the root folder as well, so where you have your package JSON file, just save it there. So we should now have node modules, and we should have a package JSON file and a Grunt file. So these are the essential things we need. So in the next tutorial, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going over this Grunt file and digging into working with these packages, and by that time I think you have the general concept of it. So in next tutorial we're going to be looking at what is actually inside this Grunt file, and we're going to be looking at how to install some packages, and we're going to be looking at how to turn these packages into tasks which can then be executed. So hope to see you guys in the next tutorial.